Hello everybody and welcome to the NXTGP GT4 Sprint Cup. We are here at one of the most iconic circuits at Monza once again. Just like we did for the Mazdas on Monday, we're on Thursday with a whole new category. I am well up for this one. It looks clear out on the racetrack as we are just in the practice session at the moment. 5.7 kilometers of racing circuit, the 9th variation of the circuit, which has been active since the year 2000. And we've got the iconic corners like the Della Roja chicane, like the Rettifilo chicane, like the Ascari section, like everywhere on the track. It's absolutely iconic and I'm absolutely over the moon to be commentating this event. It was chaos on Monday with the Mazdas overtaking galore and shock race winners. And we're going to see more of the same today here at the GT4 Sprint Cup. And I am well and truly excited for this one. And I can't wait to see some racing action with this whole new grid for season 3. So, without further ado, let's get into the practice and let's get in to see some action and see some cars going around this absolutely iconic circuit. It's definitely one of my favourites commentating at the minute, Rick Prostema at the top of the times with 56.1 as we are 7 minutes into the practice session. Everyone just getting those lap times in, and we'll see how the grid forms up as we are sub 2 minutes, unlike the slower Mazda cars. But it's Rick Prostema at the top of the times with 56.185 as Hofrichter puts it into P3 now, as Vigario also just puts it 400th behind Prostema at the top of the times with a 56.225, and off at the back of the times at the minute. Van Kruysen puts in a 158.98. First Wyvern puts in a 57.995 as we are on board with Van Kruysen as he heads through the Rettifilo chicane. You can see the narrow view we have as he heads through Curva Grande for one of the first times in the practice session. But it's going to be interesting to see who can compete at the very top in the early stages of the season. The calendar goes Monza, then Sebring, then Barcelona, Spa-Francorchamps, then the Red Bull Ring, then the Nürburgring GP circuit on the 22nd of May to round out the season for the 6th round. But we are here at round 1. It's a fresh, clean slate for the championship. That's a car tucked in on the inside, heading back into the pit lane. But as we look at Vigario's time, let's see as he heads through sector number 3, I'm pretty sure that is, as we head into the Ascari section, as he heads onto the brakes and gets the car hooked up as much as he can, throws it in to turn number 8, then into the long left-hander at turn number 9, and finally at turn number 10 to release him on the route down to Parabolica at turn number 11, the main final brake. So that's a car going very wide in the background on the exit of the Ascari chicane, heading into the gravel trap as the car behind it even follows suit. But heading around Parabolica, let's see what Vigario's time is. Currently in P2, 400th off the pace as it's so tight so far. And the current time to beat is a 56.185. Can Vigario beat it as he comes to the line? I don't know if he can. He's even closer, 2,000ths improvement with a 56.224. And now 38 thousandths behind Rick Prostema at the top as we see Stifelhagen as we head into, I'm pretty sure this is the first chicane. Jose going very deep there and nearly hitting the rear end of, I think it was the Porsche ahead of him as well. So interesting. He goes off into the runoff section, but that could have been a very nasty collision if there was to come together there. But Vigario doing a pretty decent job so far. He's just keeping out there, getting the laps in early doors, but still halfway through the practice session now. Prostema at the top of the times by such a slim margin, but it's a very nice livery, very techy livery. But here's Rick Prostema, who is at the top of the times in the BMW, heading through the Ascari section and getting the slipstream off of the McLaren as we head down to Parabolica. But it's going to be so tight, I'm pretty sure of that, if it carries on like this, especially going into qualifying, as he dives to the inside line and just flies through on the McLaren. And surely completing this lap is going to be even quicker for Rick Prostema, who's looking pretty confident so far out on the racetrack. Throws the car in at Parabolica, slowly on the curb, on the exit, and to the line we go. Is it an improvement for Prostema? 56.185 as he comes to the line. Is it a time that he's going to beat yet again? It's a 56.6. So far, probably just getting the laps in and the long runs in to get used to the racetrack in these GT4s, as he was in the Mazdas early on this week. But Weingarten puts it in P9, Visser puts it in P10, and Stratton puts it in P11 with 57.4 and a 57.5 for Stratton. Povedano puts it in P9 with 57.345, but everyone just getting these early laps in so far, getting used to the track out there and just slowly ramping up, as Postema, who's setting the time at the top, as Kukovic puts it in P7, Bakker puts it in P16 with 57.8 with his first lap of the day so far. But 11 minutes into this practice session qualifying up after this one, then we'll have the first heat for 20 minutes of racing action. Then after that one, it will be the reverse top 10 of that first heat, to round us out for the first round of the NXTGP. A lot of car drivers nipping the wheels into the ground. Oh, going very far over the curb there, getting a bit of air time. Is the BMW behind? A bit too much curb there. Must have lost a bit of time compared to the best line. But Pete Stelter currently riding on board of him as he heads into the Ascari section, into the braking zone, gets the car hooked up and flying on all sorts of curbs here. And on the exit, you want to straight line the section as much as you possibly can, and going slightly wide there, but making it work. Probably the optimal line there, taken from Peter Stelter for WS Racing Esports. And let's see, as he heads into Parabolica, if he can improve his position in P9 in practice so far, or if he's just going for the long runs, getting settled in to the racetrack as he gets the power down once again, and heading down the start-finish straight on the route down to the Retifilo chicane as he crosses the line now. Is an improvement of position. I don't think it is an improvement into P6. It's a 56.997 and about 8 tenths off of Rick Postema's time at the top. But yeah, pretty decent lap there from Pete Stelter. Might be one to watch in qualifying. Alwyn Bakker, he's just came across the line and stays in P4 with 57.0 in behind Lasse Sol, puts it in P7. Angus NM puts it in P6 with a 56.9 and a 56.944. So very close between them two in P6 and 7, but it's going to be very close in the midfield if it carries on like this, especially in qualifying as well. But in the BMW, Alwyn Bakker on another lap, followed by a Porsche in behind. Nils Bakker puts it in P9. Van Cruyssen puts it in P15 with 57.292 as we head on a long route down to the Della Roja chicane, as we look at Juri Verswijnveren as he heads down the main straight once again. He just set a 58.491. That's not going to be an improvement. There's a few seconds off the pace there, but as he heads into the Retifilo chicane once again in that Porsche, as it is one of my favoured cars, to be honest. Looks absolutely stunning as he gets on the power once again. Slightly in the gravel there, but yeah, makes it work. There's no real error there for Verswijnveren as we compare the sector times to Povedano in behind. As yeah, everyone just settling into the track so far. Povedano now in the pits, I'm pretty sure, unless he just came back out again on lap 3 and lap 4. Verswijnveren staying out there as well, so he's just setting consecutive laps to get rubbered into the track, but flying the car over the curb and trying to keep it as straight as he possibly can on the exit as he heads into the Lesmo corners. But as we look at Pedro Vigario as he heads into the Ascari chicane, Ascari section, sorry, as yeah, one of my favourite liveries, very wild livery, got to be said, in the red and white McLaren. But heads on to the long route down to Parabolica once again, and let's see if he can improve on his latest lap as he hits the bankers once again. But yeah, just setting those consecutive lap times before heading to qualifying, wire out all those mistakes. Alwyn Bakker just puts it into P5 with 56.6, so he's just getting his brain rooted into Monza. But yeah, it's a pretty decent time for Alwyn Bakker to get into P5, 4.5 tenths off the pace. But we look at Vigario as he crosses the line. Is it an improvement for him who's sat in P2? It's a 56.392 and does not improve any position there. Not an improvement on lap time either. But yeah, just getting wired into the racetrack now. As in behind, still drivers out there just setting consecutive lap times, trying to improve and trying to find the better line. It's going a bit deep there, was Stratton. As in the Mercedes as well, flying into the Della Roja chicane, and on the exits tied so you can to the gravel, sometimes even dipping a toe in the gravel. But as we head into the Lesmo corners at turn 6 and turn 7 once again, as going very wide on the exit. Oh, and that's a big mistake on the rear end. Gets a bit too much in the gravel, and that was a big correction. He comes back on the track. That's very close with the BMW as well. Nearly coming back on the racing line as he goes back into the pit lane now. But that was a huge mistake. We'll watch the replay here. He went very wide on the gravel there. Just hit the gravel, tried to correct it, but then got a massive twist of oversteer on the rears and slides into the grass there. And it's this part here where he tries to correct it and spin it round, but then nearly goes back onto the racetrack. That could have been very dangerous. As you look on board, as you just see that big snap of oversteer as he tries to correct that mistake, but nearly comes back onto the racetrack with the rear end. Well, that could have been very close with the BMW in behind, and that could have been one car out of the practice session. But Olfoff in P19 so far. He's currently just in this nice train as we head into Parabolica one more time in the Porsche. But that's an interesting livery. It's a very nice livery, actually. Very wild, a bit like underwater type-esque. But he heads back onto the main straight once again, and it'll be across the line in the slipstream. Let's see if there's improvement from P20 at the moment. Very tight to the pit wall. But so far, no. 57.7 doesn't improve on position, stays in P20. But yeah, just setting consecutive lap times like everyone else, getting wired into qualifying, which will be in 3 minutes' time. As at the minute, Rick Prostema at the top of the times. Kukovic puts it into P6 with a 56.731. Stelter into the pit lane, and he's in P7. Van Dijk in P8 at the minute. Povadano in P9. And Yuri van Zwijnveren in P10. He did a pretty decent job in the Mazda race early on in the week as well. Postema also was setting decent times in that race, but he had an early incident in the second race which denied him a chance of taking the victory in the end. But Dos Santos currently sat in P15, the man from Spain, as he heads down to the Ascari section in that Porsche. But it's interesting to see what everyone's gone for. Obviously, it is just how you feel on the game. But the Porsche is one of my favourite GT4 cars. Anyways, there we go. That's another time to go to the top of the time. That's Hofrichter. Lucas Hofrichter with 56.0 goes a 10th and a half clear at the top of the times. What a lap there, as he might be one to watch in qualifying, but improves on his position and flies to the top of the standings so far. But that might be an impressive lap time. We'll have to see when everybody else gets wired in qualifying, as we see Dos Santos head round Parabolica one more time as he gets that power down. Goes very tight to the line as well, but tight to the pit wall and tight across the line. Can Dos Santos improve on that position? About a second off the pace so far. 57.493, as Rick Prostema also puts in a 57.2, and with Steifenhagen also currently sat in P4. He's improved his position since I last checked that one. But this is the man who's at the top of the time so far in that McLaren. Could be a big threat in qualifying. Looking very good so far in the practice session. About 10th and a half clear. And the top four separated by about 0.4 of a second, just under that. But Hofrichter looking very promising so far here in the practice session. About a minute to go now, so everyone just getting the final proper laps in. But Hofrichter setting that early benchmark and goes to the top. But 56.0, can anyone dip into the 55.9s? Let's see. On the final runs here in the practice session, but surely in qualifying we might see that as well. But Hofrichter, can he do the same in qualifying and top the times? We'll have to find out in a few minutes' time. But so far looking very promising. Postema, who has been at the top for so long, as that's a car going very wide into the gravel ahead, as Stills come back onto the track very safely in the end, but it could have been a very big collision with a wall, and that's number 8 McLaren ahead, as Hofrichter just flying to that inside line and flying through. Don't want to recount it into an instant, but yeah, it was very wide at Parabolica, pushing the limits a bit too hard. I mean, it's better to push limits now in practice than doing it in qualifying. It'd be a huge mistake and better or so the race. But ran on board, it's Simon van Dijk, because he heads around Parabolica, goes very, very wide, big moments of understeer, and heads onto the gravel, and that just leads. Luckily, it's kept it on and not in the barriers, because that could have been a huge error. But yeah, does end up coming back on the track safe enough to not make any contact with the cars around him. But there we go then. That is practice done. It's Lucas Hofrichter who tops the times. But heading to qualifying, can he do the same again? Heading out the pit lane straight away to get these early laps in. Hofrichter, the man to watch. Postema also can't count him out in this qualifying session as well. So it's going to be an interesting watch as we head into the first few laps of this 5.7-kilometre circuit. It's going to be interesting to see who tops the times here at round 1 of the NXTGP GT4 Cup and Sprint Cup. But let's have a look. But Rick Postema, Hofrichter, Stuyvenhagen, that was the top 4 in the top 3 in the practice session, and Kreuzen joining that to make it the top 4 as well. But Postema was leading that also. Long Hofrichter put in that 56.0 late on to go to the top of the times, and can he do the same again and make a effortless attempt to go to the top of the times in that slipstream of the BMW ahead, as these guys just heading round on their outlaps for the first time this season. But going to be one to watch so far heading into this qualifying session, and he's going to be the one to watch all season long, as he's just going to be wide there into the gravel as we head on to the Seizoen straights. But as we head on the route down to the Ascari section, I think pretty much everybody out on the racetrack setting these early outlaps as they head on to their first official laps in qualifying. But Hofrichter, Postema, Stuyvenhagen and Kreuzen definitely the top 4 to look at if we're hinting that off of the practice session, as we even get heat into these tyres is the BMW and this man Hofrichter in the McLaren. But heading around Parabolica, here we go then. We're going to set the first official lap times of not only this round but of the season as well. Season 3 is about to get underway seriously after that practice session here at Monza, and in that slipstream of the BMW ahead, we're going to see Rick Postema, Hofrichter, Stuyvenhagen and Kreuzen all fly into turn number 1 for the first time in qualifying. Let's have a look then. 2 minutes 15 now is straight stricken on the clock as we head into the Rettifilo chicane, and let's see who can come out on top, as that's the car in the middle of the chicane. I wonder who that was after making an early mistake there. But look at the slipstream that this man is getting, topped the practice session now, slowly closing in on the BMW ahead as we see narrowly through that windscreen. But as we head into the Della Roja chicane, is he going to try and go for a move around the outside? I think he might just stay behind, brake a bit earlier and let the BMW just stay ahead as he gets a slipstream on the next straight as well. But going pretty wide was the BMW, and now just letting him through as we head into the first Lesmo, as Hofrichter is let through there. So yeah, going very deep into the Della Roja chicane was the BMW, and Hofrichter says thank you very much and just lets him through. So easy job for him. But as he heads down the Seizoen straight once more, and for the first time in this qualifying session, what time is it going to be? Can he beat his practice time? But so far setting a orange middle split, so let's see if he can improve in the next 2 splits and try and set a personal best, or is he down by too much? Stuyvenhagen sets the fastest first sector, but then doesn't improve in that second sector. In the third sector, improves on his personal best as well. So Stuyvenhagen might be one to watch as he heads and finishes his first lap so far. But Hofrichter, as he heads into Parabolica, Stuyvenhagen sets a purple in the 4th sector as well. But Hofrichter, as he comes across the line, what's it going to be for him? As it's ticking past 1 minute 50s now. Is it going to be 1:56, or is it going to be even more than that for the McLaren as he heads across the line? It's going to be a 57, I'm pretty sure that was. Stuyvenhagen, Postema also crossing line. So Hofrichter is at the top of the time so far. It's a 56.586. Postema with a 57.5. He's definitely going to have to keep improving on that. Agus puts in about 3 tenths behind, and a 56.8 in behind Kukovic. 56.7. Olfoff puts in his personal best with a 57.1, a lot better than his practice session. As Menas puts it into P8 as well. As Weingarten puts it in P5. That's a decent lap time for him early doors, getting in these banker laps so far. Alwyn Bakker, he was pretty decent in practice, and so far puts it in P3 where he wants to be with 56.767. As these guys still setting personal best sectors. It's Hofstadter who's setting his personal best so far. Vigario, he set a purple in that first split, but not improving in sector 2 and sector 3. But as we see the Porsche driving through, let's see if he can improve the number 18 car here in qualifying, which is Vers Wijnveren, as he heads into Parabolica, as he has improved in the first 3 sectors, not improved in the 4th, but as he heads around the Parabolica and the final corner here at the iconic circuit of Monza. Can Verswijveren set a time to compete at the top as Stelter puts in the top time, only 1,000ths ahead of Hofrichter, so very, very close there. But here we go with Verswijveren. What's it going to be for him? Did he not set the lap time there? I think he might have just went wide or invalidated that one. It's not going to count, I don't think. He's still yet to set a lap time. Rick Prostema, so far, they're coming out the pit lane pretty harshly behind. He set a purple middle split and improving the first and the fourth sector, but in the second sector not improving there. But Stelter 1,000th, look how close it is at the top to Hofrichter. They're still setting back-to-back lap times. Hofrichter does go to the top of the time by 4/10 of a second. Good improvement there. 56.189. Still not setting his personal best, so about 10th second off his practice time. Rick Prostema puts it in P2 by a 10.5. And Stelter still in P3 so far. Steifelhagen in P4 and Kukovic in P5, and that makes up your top 5 as Bas Visser puts it into P5 and gets through on Kukovic. As on the pit exit is Hofrichter, so is Prostema and Steifelhagen, so we'll see them come out in a few moments time. I'm pretty sure that's one. There's no making contact. I think that was the McLaren behind, as we see Bas Visser on his latest lap. Hofstadter also in the 22 car, also improving in his first free sector, so we'll have to keep an eye on him as well. As Lasse Salt, he's heading around Parabolica in that BMW. Let's see if there's an improvement for him. Going sat in P14, can he improve to go further up the pack? As he's getting a nice slipstream from the BMW ahead. And is it going to be an improvement there? It's a 58.169, so it's not going to be an improvement this time around. Still got a few more laps to do it. Vigario, he sets purple in that fourth split there, and he might be one to watch when he comes across the line if he does improve in the end. As he does come across the line now. Is it an improvement there for Vigario? I think it is. It's P2, 800th off the pace, but so close. That's an interesting first lap, and it's a very good first lap to get on the board into the front row, but nice job from Pedro Vigario, and just 800th away from grabbing that pole position. But here we go then, as this is Ariel Menas in his Porsche car, in the number 25 car, as he's heading around Lesmo 1, as he's about to fly into Lesmo 2. De Santos is also improving on this lap. Agus also with purple in that fourth split as well, so I have to keep an eye on him as he comes across the line in a few moments time in that number 10 car. Let's see if he can go to the top of the times. Improvement in the first split, improvement in the third split, and purple in that fourth split. Can Agus go to the top of the times as he crosses the line? Let's see what time it's going to be. It's only to P7, so it's a 56.699, about 5/10 off Hofrichter's time at the top. But decent effort there from Agus NM in P7. And that's Bas Visser who goes into P4 with 56.523. Hofrichter grabbed another purple second split, but I don't think it's going to be an improvement as he comes across the line. But he's still on provisionally at the top of the times. Vigario still in P2 and Prostema our top 3 so far. We can see this big train of cars as they are heading on to, well, about second to last lap in qualifying so far. As the clock strikes about 9 minutes in. So here we go then, as we see in Hofrichter in the middle of this pack and getting a slipstream from the cars ahead, which is the BMW, and I think there's another McLaren ahead as well. It's the Mercedes, I'm pretty sure it is. I can't really tell by that angle, but Hofrichter currently sat the third car in this train, so we'll see if he can improve that margin to Vigario in P2, who's just at a 56.483, not improving his position. Stelter also staying in P5. Verswijveren, he's about to come across the line in a few moments time. Still a lot of orange sectors there, so I don't think it'll be an improvement for him as he sets himself up for another lap. But Bas Van Straten, he's coming across the line in P16, and he just put it into P16, about 1.5 off the pace with 57.678. Agus NM, see him as he comes into Parabolica. He's improving it in that first 3 splits into the 4th split. Is not quite improved there, but as he heads into Parabolica, the main final corner and the main corner in the 5th split, let's see if he can improve his position from P7. He's about 5/10 off the pace before. Can he improve higher up into the top 5 as Agus puts it across the line? Is it an improvement for him? As a 56.6 stays in P7. Does improve, but not by enough to make up that position. Hofrichter, he's coming across the line in a few moments. And Visser puts it into P2 with 56.218. Good lap from him. About 300th off the pace there. Povidano puts it in P10. Simon Van Dijk puts it in P11 after we saw him make a big mistake in practice, but making up for it here in qualifying. Olivia Alfoff puts it into P10 with 56.85. 3 I've heard he didn't have any practice. Nils Bakker puts it into P12. He got purple in that final split. Pedro Vigario, he's currently sat in P3, and he's just set a purple in that first split. A green in the second, not improving in the third. So we'll have to see if he can improve as he heads into the final 2 sections, and he comes across the line as we see him in our screen now as he heads into Parabolica. Can he improve, and can he improve that position? Any sort of margin could close up here and at least get past Visser, or maybe get to the top of the times. Can he do it in the McLaren as he heads down the main straight one more time in qualifying as he heads across the line? Is it an improvement, and is it provisional pole? It absolutely is, by 2 thousandths of a second and 56.187. That's a huge lap from Pedro Vigario. Can anybody else improve and try and get above that? But 2 thousandths to Hofrich, that just shows any sort of error could really cost you here in qualifying. But look at that time gain. So narrow, and the margins are so small. But in behind, I think we saw someone go a bit wide. Lesmo's Diplo into the goal, but good lap from Vigario to put it to the top of the time. Hofrichter, he's going to be surely competing to try and take that one back. There's a gap only 2 thousandths of a second. Hofrichter, as we see and ride on board with him now, currently sat in P2. Let's see if he can improve on his latest lap. Agus also improved in that first split, but Bachtel, I'm pretty sure, in the next 3, as he has not improved there, so setting himself up for another lap in qualifying. 12 minutes now on the clock, 3 minutes to go, and it's Vigario at the top of the times. Jimmy Dos Santos puts it into P19 with 57.3. Bas Visser, he's also set a purple middle split, but I don't think he improved that position overall. Kukovic puts it back into P5 with 56.558. Postema also puts it into P4. Bas Visser in P3. Hofrichter in P2. And Hofrichter goes to the top of the times once again. It's a 56.121 and about 700th clear. Good lap there from Hofrichter as he had a fantastic exit out actually on the exit of Parabolica. So very nice lap time from Hofrichter as he came across lines, ran on board with the Mercedes, who parks it up on the grass there. Interesting from the Mercedes, just took it out of the way, so maybe not competing for the remaining few minutes in qualifying. So yeah, interesting to see him out of there. But Vigario, can he improve on his latest lap? Hofstadter puts into P9 with 56.666. And good lap from Hofstadter so far to get himself within the top 10. Bambissa in the pit lane as well, so is he going to have enough time to get another lap in? Hofrichter, as he comes across the line, or as Vigario comes across the line, sorry, does a 56.298 and does not improve on his latest lap, but needs to improve by 700th to get pole position. Kukovic gets purple in that first split. Let's keep an eye on him for the rest of the lap if he improves in that middle split, which he hasn't. So yeah, needs a mega final 2 splits here, but maybe lost a bit too much time in the second and the third, heading down to the Ascari section as he flies over the curbs at turn 9 and 10. Let's see if it's an improvement in that 4th split as he follows that Porsche ahead of him as well, but no, not improving there as well. So it's another orange split for Kukovic, who sat in P6. He's sat in P5 for quite a long time, but Staffelhagen has just taken that away from him so far. About 4.5 times off the pace is Igor Kukovic. He's got the pace in that first split, but apart from that, out on the track, seems to be struggling in the final 4.4 pace. But we'll have to see if he can improve on that time later on. Povidano puts in P11 as Kukovic does improve on that time in the end. Very consistent in the final 4. It must have been to improve in that first split, but puts it back in P5 where he so belongs. Pedro Vigario, can he improve on his latest lap as Coel puts it still in P22 there, about 2.2 off the pace. Weingarten puts it back into P10 with 56.7. But 30 seconds left on the clock. Everyone needing to get these final laps in. And who's going to compete for pole? Hofrichter currently at the top of the times by 700th of a second with 56.121. Vigario out on the racetrack as well. He's right on board with him as he heads into Parabolica. Is it going to be an improvement? Can he try and lift himself up to the top and into P1 for the first qualifying session here in the NXTGP Round 1 for the GT4 event? And can he do it as he comes around Parabolica for the final time in qualifying? 2 seconds to go on the clock and comes across the line. Is an improvement? I don't think it is. So I think it's Hofrichter who takes pole position, hitting the first qualifying of the season. Fantastic lap from him as we look at Simon Van Dijk there, as he's come across of Curva Grande. But lovely lap there from him as he sets the top time once again. What a lap. Hofrichter at the top. As we run through the qualifying results, sent out the back of the package, Jean Howery, then Coel in P22, never really found the pace in the end. Ariel Menas in P21, Ban Van Straten in P19 there. In P18, Jimmy De Santoff, Lasse Sol in P17, Simon Van Dijk in P16, Niels Bakker in P15, Vers Wijnvrin in P14, Oliver Alfoff in P13, Arya Providano in P12, Alwyn Bakker in P11 only, Weingarten in P10, Hofstadter in P9, Angus in P8, Stelter in P7, Stiffelhagen in P6, Kukovic in P5, Postema in P4, Bandissa in P3. Vigario only got P2 in the end, very close, but good lap from him. And Hofrichter at the top of the times and sets the fastest time of the session. Lovely stuff from him. Pole position, as that's where you want to be for the first round. But great qualifying session there. The guy who topped the practice session topped the qualifying as well. Looked very good there and very consistent overall, just to keep improving slowly through the session. But that's where you want to be, at the top. And good lap in the end for Hofrichter there. But it's going to be an interesting circuit to battle on as well. A lot of overtaking opportunities. Hofrichter is going to be leading that line as well. And can he be the man to improve even further and take the first race win of the season? As there's Pete Stelter as he heads round in the warm-up for around Curva Grande and heading to the Della Roger chicane. But in a few moments' time, we'll get that first race underway. And it's Hofrichter who will lead us away when the lights go green for the first time this season. But WS Racing Esports, see both the cars following through there at the right-hander at the Lesmo 1. It goes a bit wide on the exit there. Both of them actually following suit in the McLarens. Very nice livery there, I've got to say. Very nicely designed as they come around Lesmo 2 and head into the Ascari section. But it could be an interesting one, this, as they head on their warm-up laps. But let's see who can impress in the race. Has anyone got a bit of extra race pace in the locker? And can Hofrichter lead us away from pole and try and take that margin even further with the first race win? Obviously, we'll have the second race as well, second heat, where it will be the reverse top 10 as well. That could get very spicy with Hofrichter starting further back. I'm pretty sure of that one, unless something happens in heat 1. But let's see who can top the times once again and top the session here for the first heat of the NXTGP GT4 Sprint Cup. The first GT4 Sprint Cup of events so far this season, as we're here in Monza for another fantastic event, just like the Masters earlier on this week. And if you don't, I mean, if you've got to check that one out next week as well on Monday at Sebring on the 21st of April, make sure to be there for that one. And next week here, it will be Sebring as well. So nice to see the common themes there. It will definitely be nice for the drivers who are racing in both the categories. But we have got similar names in both. Weingarten raced in the Mazdas earlier on this week as well. He did a decent job there, nearly grabbed the race win in the end. It was very, very close to the line in that second heat and the first heat as well. He was up there as well, but today starting in P10. So we'll see what he can do in both heats. In the GT4s, going very wide is the Mercedes of Bas van Straten on his route down to the Sky section, but a bit too deep in Lesmo 2, pushing it a bit too much on his first warm-up lap here in Monza. But it's definitely one of my favourite iconic racetracks there is out there. Monza, Silverstone and Spa, I think my top 3 tracks, got to be said. 3 of the most iconic ones, that's for sure. But on the route down to Parabolica, Stratton don't want to be making them mistakes in the race, that's for sure. Could have been losing positions to the cars behind, but still, get these issues out of the way. And surely when he gets into the race, get settled in, get in that race mindset, make up those positions and go for gold at the top. But it's going to be tricky to beat Hofrichter at the top of the times, as these guys setting their final few laps in the warm-up. Okay, so that is it then. One race only due to iRacing problems then. So the reverse grid will not be available, I'm afraid. So it'll be just this main event here, and it'll be Hofrichter who leads the way. So only one heat then, as the second heat has been cancelled due to iRacing issues. We had issues earlier on with opening the lobby in the first place, but we have finally got everyone in. Qualifying did begin perfectly on time as well, but the practice session was hard to get everyone in. But still, only one heat, I'm afraid, and it will be Hofrichter who leads the way from that one. And the second heat has been cancelled. You see everyone lining up behind the safety cars, getting on the grid, ready to go. Is this one being reversed? I'm guessing this one's being reversed. The first race, the feature race has been reversed there. So it's Hofrichter starts in P10, Vigario in P9, Basvissa in P8, Postema in P7, Kukovic in P6, Steifelhagen in P5, Stelter in P4, Agus in P3, Hofstadter in P2, and Weingarten at the top. So this will be interesting to see here in the first race and in the feature race for the first event in the NXTGP Sprint Cup for the GT4s. So it'll be Weingarten who leads the way in that 595 car. Let's see if he can do a good job and try and take it away from there. But here is the grid for you then. It's Luke van Weingarten who takes us from the top. Hofstadter in P2, Agus NM in P3, Peter Shelter in P4, Steifelhagen in P5, Kukovic in P6, Rick Postema in P7, Basvissa in P8, Pedro Vigario in P9, Hofrichter, the man who was at the top in qualifying, in P10, as the top 10 has been reversed, Alwyn Bakker in P11, Adria Povedano in P12, and in behind that it's Olivier Olfoff in P13, Juri van Wijsveren in P14, Nils Bakker in P15, Simon van Dijk in P16, Lasse Sol in P17, Jimmy van dos Santos in P18, Owen van Kruisen in P19, Van Straten in P20, Ariel Menas in P21, Corel in P22, and at the back of the pack is Gene Howery. And let's see what these guys can do from the top as safety car gets away, as we're about to go green in a few moments' time when the safety car peels in. But Hofstadter and Weingarten side by side as we head into Parabolica for the first time here. Let's see who can take it. The first event and the first and only race we're going to have due to the iRacing issues. Weingarten, Hofstadter, who's going to get the better start as we head around Parabolica. The safety car going to peel in a few moments' time. You can see everyone slowly weaving in the background, get heat into those tyres. Weingarten in that Porsche versus the BMW around the outside line, and who's going to take it? You can see the two queues heading down the final straights. We're about to go green for the first time this season in the NXTGP GT4 Sprint Cup as the silence breaks and the battle begins. Weingarten, Hofstadter both coming to the line. Let's see who can get the better start as we head into the Retfilo chicane. Red light shown as we are now going green as Weingarten, Angus NM both getting through. Steifelhagen in P3, Hofstadter dropping all the way down to P4. But good start from Weingarten, about 3 tenths clear at the top as we head into the first chicane. See all the cars diving for moves. Good start from Angus NM to get into P2, but in behind, that's Olivier Olfoff. Oh, that's a big instant there. Spinning the car round, and I think that was Nils Bakker in the background. That's Basvissa, who's dropped all the way to the back of the pack. Horrendous start. He was in the top 10, getting spun round early doors into the first chicane, but good start from Weingarten, who leads by 5 tenths of a second to Agus NM in P2. And Steifelhagen in P3, Hofstadter in P4, Postema in P5, Hofrichter already climbing through the field and back through Kukovic into P9, but good start from Weingarten and gaining so far on Agus NM in P2. So good start from the Porsche, and let's see if we can get away going wide there. Steifelhagen at Lesmo 1. But 20 minutes on the clock, and it's Weingarten who leads the way in the background. This is De Santos in the battle for P14 with Lasse Sol. That's a collision on the exit of Lesmo 2 and puts him into the wall. Lasse Sol sent back to the back of the pack. I don't think it's major damage, so he's still going to be able to get away. But Faf Madil, and that's his contention for points out of the window. Faf Madil after a collision early doors with Jimmy De Santos for P14. He's behind me on the right board with Rick Frosthamer as he heads down the straight in the slipstream of Hofstadter, Steifelhagen, Agus NM and Weingarten, who is leading the pack as we head for the first time into Parabolica in the race. But good race so far, good start so far from Weingarten, exactly what I need on pole position. as iRacing has closed in the final few splits. But Rick Postema, down the straight we go with Hofstadter as we head past the start finish line and onto the next lap, as Rick Postema is still pulling side by side as we head into the Rettifilo chicane. Who can take this one? Rick Postema is going to surely swoop round the outside here. It's still going to go close side by side into the first chicane. iRacing also contending with Luca Weingarten, as in behind it's still so close between the likes of Hofstadter and Vigario as we head around Curva Grande. But these guys here, Steifelhagen and iRacing round the outside at Curva Grande. Can he make this stick? We've got heavy braking zone at Della Roger chicane to make this one move and make this one stick as he heads onto the brakes into the chicane, but no, has to stay behind, and Steifelhagen is absolutely through. Lovely move from the Porsche and heads into P2, and now going to hunt down Weingarten to grab the first and only race win here at Monza. Good start from him, but still Steifelhagen climbing through the field and climbing so far into P2. iRacing so far in P3. On the exit as we head onto the Selagilo straight once again. It's so close, the gap under 0.2 of a second from Steifelhagen to Weingarten. Can he try and make a move early doors and get into that race lead? In behind, that's Hofrichter making a move on Peter Stelter. He's already climbed his way up to P7 so far, and lovely stuff from P10 after that grid has been reversed in this first heat. And Povedano also getting the move done on Vers Weinveren as he headed into the Ascari section. But Weingarten under pressure now from Steifelhagen on lap 2 of this event is already pulling to the outside line and pulling side by side with Weingarten. Can he make it stick around the outside at Parabolica? It's Weingarten with the inside outside line for Steifelhagen. Actually kind of defending from the inside line is iRacing as well. Vigario gets into P5 above Hofstadter as well. Lovely stuff from him. But we head on the route, on the start finish straight, all the way down to the Rettifilo chicane. It's side by side between Weingarten and Steifelhagen. Can Steifelhagen get into that race lead? So far, about 6/10 quicker on that last lap. Obviously has that slipstream as well. Look how close it is, both from the fight for P1 and the fight for P3, still side by side. Weingarten with the inside line stays well and truly ahead with a better line through the first chicane, but on the exit, and Steifelhagen closing behind. Vigario making a move on iRacing, who's dropping down all the way to P7 as Hofrichter all the way up to P5. Fantastic first few laps from him, from P10 all the way up to P5. Absolutely ideal in the reverse grid. Can he get on the back of Vigario as soon as he can? But as we head into the Della Roger chicane, focus back on the front. Steifelhagen and Weingarten still slightly trying to go side by side is Steifelhagen, but staying ahead is Weingarten once again and staying in that race lead, battling and defending as much as he possibly can. Weingarten stays at the top, as so far it's been so close between these two. I don't doubt that it's going to get even closer as well as in behind. I think Hofrichter also closing through the grid as well. He's definitely setting the early pace through the whole pack from P10, and let's see if he can close in to try and fight for the podium. But Weingarten, Steifelhagen and Postema all in the provisional top 3 so far, and so close to each other, all within 0.2 of each other, as Weingarten, Steifelhagen looking to battle once again as we head into the Ascari section. It's both Porsches fighting this one out for the win, but still 15 minutes to remain. Anything can happen. Collisions, drama and chaos, I'm sure of that one. But Weingarten doing a good job so far. He was so close to winning in the first race for the Mazdas, and can he come here in the GT4s and take the first event win here in Monza? As we head around Parabolica, seems to be a good move from Steifelhagen, as have just been announced that there will be a second race as well after this one. I think it might have just been fixed, whatever the issues was with the iRacing servers, but yeah, there will be a second race for the GT4s. But here we go again as we head on to lap number 4, as it's Steifelhagen finally going for that move on Weingarten. He's got the inside line this time around. Postema also trying to make a move down the inside of Weingarten as we head into the first chicane. On the brakes, it's Steifelhagen, and he's still going side by side. Holding it round the outside is Weingarten, takes a lot of curb on the exit, but at turn number 2, he gets the power down. He's still side by side, but it's Steifelhagen who monsters through as we head around Curva Grande. Postema also on the grass. He's also trying to make a move, not just on Weingarten, is right on the back of Stifelhagen as he's now going to the outside line as we head on the route to Curva Grande and past Curva Grande into the Della Roger chicane on the brakes. It's still side by side between Weingarten and Postema as we head on the brakes. It is Weingarten who pulls ahead as we head into turn number 5. Nice defensive move there. He needed it really to keep Postema behind and for his podium hopes, but Stifelhagen, lovely stuff to get into that race lead. He's been knocking on the door since the early stages, but in behind Hofrichter is right on the back of Vigario, who's now closing to the back of Postema, so I have to keep an eye on them and see if they can get involved in this battle for that race win. But the top 5 so close to each other so far. You can see it in the slipstream is in behind. I think that's Hofrichter going for a move on Vigario, and now trying to go for a move is Weingarten. Is he going to go for a move down the inside? He's going to have to hold it round the outside. Stifelhagen, I think, might just have it covered, but still going side by side behind is Vigario and Hofrichter makes that move into P4. The man who sat on pole position is now up to P4 in the reverse Grand Prix as well, but Stifelhagen getting past the reverse grid pole sitter, which was Weingarten, but Weingarten certainly not going to let this one go, but in behind is might have to just defend from Postema, who's looking to get his elbows out in that BMW. Heading round Parabolica for the 4th time this race, and on to lap 5 it's Stifelhagen who leads us away as we're going to go tight to the pit wall once again. I'm pretty sure of that one. As in that slipstream, you can see all the top 5 surely going to squabble down the main straight once again. Hofrichter looking so quick so far. This race overall here at Monza. He's actually going for a move round the outside. I'm pretty sure Postema as well. Is he going to try and make that one stick? Stifelhagen has got this one covered as well, but down the inside is Postema and Weingarten. They're going side by side once again. Can this time Weingarten hold it round the outside and now got the inside line, but now we're heading round Curva Grande. Once again, we've seen Postema go down the inside and round the outside. There's Hofrichter trying to make a move for them both. Can he try and get through? He's got past Vigario. Can he now take a challenge to Weingarten and Postema around the outside at the Della Roger chicane? Can he try and make a move on not just one car but on them both in the braking zone? Hofrichter, can he go down the inside of Weingarten at the Della Roger chicane on the switchback as well, but making contact? That's a huge error for Angus NM, who's flying down the order and going into the barrier there. He needs to rejoin safely, but that's a big mistake. They're taking way too much curb and flying with a huge snap or overstay on the exit. But that is Angus NM well and truly out of this race and scoring points. Which you're going to see a replay of this as we headed into Della Roger chicane. He gets hit actually by the BMW, I'm pretty sure, on the rears. It's a big tap on the rears and now sends flying around. That's far from ideal for Angus NM, who looked pretty good in qualifying. His pace was decent, and now in the race sent flying to the back and into P21, but we head back to the front. Stifelhagen a second clear, Postema in P2 and Hofrichter in P3, Vigario in P4 and Weingarten our top 5 so far. He's now at the back of this pack here for the lead, but Stifelhagen 1.1 clear, that's what he needs as we head on to lap number 6. And for the 5th time around Parabolica, Stifelhagen is leading quite nicely with a quite chunky gap to Postema. Then Hofrichter, who's climbed all the way from P10 into P3. It's been an ideal start to his GT4 Sprint Cup career for the NXTGP series. But let's see if he can try and grab this race win as well. He's right on the back of Postema. We are now halfway through the session. 10 minutes on the clock, 10 minutes to go, and it's Stifelhagen who takes us away at the top. Postema in behind. He's going to have to defend nicely from Hofrichter, but behind that we see Vigario right on the back of Hofrichter as well, putting the pressure on that McLaren as we head around Curva Grande. Let's see if he can try and make a move, as he seems to have a fair bit of pace as well, so he might maybe try and follow him through as Hofrichter eyes up a move on Postema. Is covering that inside line side there is Postema, but no, not close enough to make a move into the chicane. But in behind, this is Hofstadter, who's trying to make a move on the McLaren ahead of him, but heading into Lesmo corners. Still has to stay at bay in P7 and behind Simon Van Dijk. But you can see this huge train for the points places, as any sort of mistake can send you right to the back. But so far, Olfoff and Harry, both drivers out of this session so far. But Stifelhagen now getting close in on by Postema as well as they head into the Ascari section. But Hofstadter closing in on Van Dijk, and in the middle of both packs here of Stelter in behind and Van Dijk in ahead. So let's see if he can get his foot down and try and make that move into the top 6. But we head back to the top. It's Hofrichter in P6 now behind Postema as well once again. As we head into Parabolica, any moves to be made this time around? Prostema trying to get as much slipstream as he possibly can as we head into Parabolica on the back of Stifle-Hagen's car as well. As he sets the anchors on the brakes, he's in behind. Look at the squabble in for P9 as Povedano as we head into Parabolica. He's trying to make a move on Stelter ahead as he's trying to get the better exit as well, better traction down and the straight line speed, a bit of bum drafting as well in behind. And let's see if he can try and make that move to the inside line. Hofrichter sets the fastest lap of this race. That's a 55.999, the fastest of the race and session overall for Hofrichter, who's now right on the back of Prostema as they head around Curva Grande. But let's see if Hofrichter can make that move in behind Povedano. He's also trying to make a move on Stelter. Again, it's so close with these guys fighting for overall this pack, fighting for P5 of Weingarten at the top of this pack as these guys now head round Curva Grande. For the 7th time in this race, Stifle-Hagen 6 tenths clear at the top though as Prostema and Hofrichter side by side. Hofrichter later on the brakes as we head into the Della Voglia chicane from P10 on the grid. Now got the outside line, going a bit into the gravel as well, and on the exit into Lesmo number 1 as Prostema might have to set sights on Vigario in behind, but from P10 on the grid into P2, Hofrichter is flying, and now 7 minutes on the clock. Now can he chase down Stifle-Hagen? But what a race through the pack it has been for Lucas Hofrichter, who's now finding himself the man who could contend for this race win. In behind, Pedro Vigario in P4. He was trying to make a move on Prostema as well. That was close on the exit of the Della Voglia chicane. But the gap already coming down to 1 second from Hofrichter to Stifle-Hagen. Can Prostema also try and follow him through in the BMW? It's the Porsche who leads the way to the McLaren as the chase down has now begun. But Vigario, so far, you can see him in the slipstream of Prostema. Can he try and make a move and follow Hofrichter through? It seems like he's got a decent pace here in the McLaren. Has Vigario as he heads into Parabolica for 7th time this race, and on the exit gets the power down and surely going to pull alongside. It seems like he's got a better exit as well and better overhead speed. But can he pull to the inside line? He's going to follow him all the way through on the route down to the Rettifilo chicane, take as much slipstream as he possibly can to get that good enough overspeed to slingshot himself through and to the inside line. Can he keep this one though? Vigario, can he get P3 right past Vigario? He has got it in the end. Round Prostema, heavy on the brakes. It's still side by side, but just lets him go. I'm pretty sure it is Prostema. He knows he's got the better pace and lets him fly through in the McLaren on the exit. Didn't have the speed he probably wanted there as Prostema makes a bit of contact, I'm pretty sure, with the back of that McLaren. That is far from ideal for him, but look at the gap it has been. It's just letting him back through. He's getting a bit feisty between these two, that's for sure. But Vigario let back through by Prostema. Interesting stuff between them guys. I don't know if one of them got gone or anything like that, but just let back through is the BMW as they need to try and make up time to the cars ahead as well. But Prostema now back in P3 with Vigario in P4. But Stifle-Hagen, the gap 0.3 of a second at the top. So look at how close it is between Hofrichter and himself. The gap down to, well, five minutes left in the session. And Stifle-Hagen's gap absolutely reduced into half. But Hofrichter right on the back and could take this race win here today for the first time. There will now be a second event as well after the early issues, so that'll be where Hofrichter leads away from pole. So can he get both wins, pole position and top of the practice session? It'd be a full Grand Slam for Hofrichter, who's also got the fastest lap as well. But heading down on the route to Parabolica once again, Vigario needs to get through this time round, but Hofrichter pulling side by side with Stifle-Hagen. Is he going to go for a move around the outside? As it's Lucas versus Lucas into Parabolica. It's the McLaren versus the Porsche, and who can come out on top? Is it Hofrichter? Is it Stifle-Hagen? I think this one might just be Hofrichter if he has the better overhead speed. But as we head on the exit on the route down to Rettifilo chicane once again, 4 minutes 30 on the clock, and let's see how long it's going to take Hofrichter to get through. It could be the matter of seconds as he's in that slipstream. The gap reducing about 0.5 of a second, pulls out from Stifle-Hagen's slipstream and pulls into that race lead. What a race it's been from Hofrichter from P10 now into the race lead and fought through the grid. But that pace is absolutely mighty in that McLaren. Looks so much more comfortable than all the other drivers out there, making moves and flying now 5.5 tenths ahead. What a move from him. As look at this behind, absolute squabbling. That's a BMW without this bonnet, and I think that's Vukovic who's dropping position. That's Simon van Dijk in behind. No, I've seen the McLaren, so it's even further behind that. I think that might be Hofstadter. We're going to see a replay of this one as they headed into the Rettifilo chicane on the brakes. As we'll keep an eye on that BMW there. Van Dijk's leading the way. It's a big spin on the rear, and that causes a crash with that BMW, who loses the front of that car. But Van Dijk caught on the rear spin there as he gets hit from behind, and I think that might have been from Kukovic in the McLaren as well. So yeah, far from ideal as he's dropped through the order. Weingarten still at the top of that pack as well. Vigario in P3 as well. He's finally got past Postema, and no squabbling this time around into P3 on the provisional podium so far. But still, 3 minutes left on the clock. Hofrichter with a mighty climb through the pack from P10 into that race lead and flying out front at the minute by himself in a different league of his own. 9/10 of a second is that gap. Stuyfel-Hagen, I don't think, has got anything left to give. But Hofrichter, what a race so far it's been from him. Stuyfel-Hagen in P2 and Vigario ran on board of him as he's in P3 so far. And can he try and close in Stuyfel-Hagen if that gap does close anymore in the final 3 minutes? But Povedano, he might just get overtaken by Weingarten, or the other way around, sorry. As Weingarten under pressure from Povedano on the exit, who's got a better overhead speed as we head on the route down to the Rettifilo chicane. As it's Povedano, Weingarten, then Stelter, Van Dijk, Kukovic and Kreuzen follow remaining point scoring positions. But here we go as we head into the Rettifilo chicane. Squabbling from slipstream in the end, but going to the inside line is Adriana Povedano. As to the inside line he goes in that Porsche, and on the brakes, can he fly through on Weingarten? As it's Pete Stelter, sorry, who flies through in the end. But on the exit, the McLaren flying through as well. Around the outside, can he try and make that move on Weingarten as well? Round the outside is Peter Stelter. Can he try and make this move all the way around? Weingarten still side by side as well, but in behind, look at this squabbling for position. As Povedano also right in the middle of all this as well, as he trying to make a move into the Della Roggia chicane. Heavy on the brakes is Pete Stelter. Round the outside at turn number 5, and going round the outside is Peter Stelter, and does make that move. But we're heading to Lesmo corners. He's going 3 wide into here as he's still side by side with Weingarten and Van Dijk. As we go in even further into Lesmo number 2, we are well and truly still side by side, swooping round the outside and getting tapped on the rears. It sorts all sorts of carnage, and into the wall goes Kreuzen, Kukovic and Van Dijk, and fighting well and truly out the points now. That's a huge incident there, going side by side in Lesmo 2. 3 into 1 doesn't work, especially even 4 into 1 at one point there. Crazy battling there. There's Weinveren now into P8 as well. He's been promoted there, fighting with Riss and Povedano and Stelter. But what a huge collision that was, and they are sent packing well and truly out of the top 10. Hofrichter, 40 seconds left on the clock, and about to come across the line after a fantastic performance from P10 on the pack. And the clock strikes 19 minutes 30 seconds as Hofrichter is setting the final lap on this race, and Vigario sets the fastest lap of this race, so he might try and close in Stuyfel-Hagen, but it'll have to be a very late lunge in the end. As in behind, we're going to see this absolute squabble for the top 5 as Pete Stelter leads it, and it goes all the way down to Weingarten in P13, this big train. We've seen incidents galore. People go off at Lesmo 2, and it's getting feisty in this midfield pack as we are now on the final lap of the race. Hofrichter, what a dominant performance from him, from P10 on the grid into that race lead. But Stuyfel-Hagen, nothing else to give, and now actually getting closing on by Vigario. But I bet he's glad it's the final lap, because if there was one more, I think Vigario might try and make a move. He's still got options there, as in behind, that's Coel in the mix of all this fighting as well. But that's Simon Van Dijk with another incident. There was one earlier on when he was fighting for the top 8, and now sent well and truly packing down to P19 at the first chicane and out of the battle there. Even worse race, nightmare race for Simon Van Dijk. We're going to see a replay here as he was going 3 wide once again into the first chicane. Heavy on the brakes into the Rettifilo section as in behind gets tapped from the rear. It's an unlucky incident from Simon Van Dijk, and yeah, collateral damage from the other 2 Porsches in behind. But Hofrichter, what a race from him. From P10 on the grid, he took pole position, but this is the reverse grid, so started from P10. They're still battling behind with Weingarten, getting through on Stratton as well into P12. Needs to get our top 10 though, all important. But Hofrichter, for the final time this race, there'll still be another one in the second heat. Can he take that one as well? This is an absolute dominant week for Hofrichter. He heads around Parabolica, and for the first round in NXTGP here at Monza in the reverse grid race, Hofrichter from P10 is gonna take the race win. What a race from Hofrichter. And he takes the first win of the NXTGP GT4 season as Steifelhagen takes P2 of his personal best in the race, and Vigario very close to catching up in the end, only P3, but very good performance from him. In behind, Postema takes P4, Stelter in P5, Bas Visser takes P6, Povidano crosses line in P7, Verswijveren in P8 as we're looking at Simon van Dijk again. As he's had another incident, I'm pretty sure. He's heading over the curbs. Takes a lot of and that's another big error from Van Dijk, as it's been an absolute nightmare race for the McLaren. As that's another incident at the Della Rogers came this time around. He's literally drifting round Parabolica and heading across the line. And it's been a miserable race for him, but he comes across the line, still got another chance. And let's see if he can do anything better in that second race. But what a race from Lucas Hofrichter. Lucas Steifelhagen give everything he possibly could. 1.5 of the gap in the end, but still P2. What an event for him. But that man, Lucas Hofrichter, takes the win in the first round, and Steifelhagen takes P2. Vigario in P3 to finish off that podium. Postema in P4. Stelter is in P5. The best of the rest after that huge incident with the cars behind him. Bas Visser in P6. Povidano take P7. Verswijveren in P8 overall. Good performance from him after climbing through the pack. Alwin Bakker takes P9, Jimmy Dos Santos in P10, Weingarten takes P11 only as he starts on pole position, ended up quite a miserable race in the end with a few incidents involved there. Bas van Straten takes P12, Van Preussen in P13, Nils Bakker takes P14, Angus NM, a lot of incidents for him in P15, Coel P16, Menas in P17 and Lasse Sol in P18, and below him we have Jonas Hofstadter in P19, Simon van Dijk in P20. A lot of incidents with him in that race in that McLaren. Igor Kukovic takes P21, Jorge in P22, and Olivier Olshoff in P23. And that is the reverse grid over at Monza, as we'll get into the second race in a few moments' time. But what a race from that man. Hello everybody and welcome back to the next event for the NXTGP GT4 Sprint, as we're here for the second race again. At first we didn't think it was going to happen, but we are here in a new server and we're here ready to race again. It was a very good race first time round and we're sure might just see Hoffrich win again, but very good pace on him. And can we see even more of that? But we're here at Monza. That's a beautiful camera angle at the Ascari chicane. But we've seen some absolute incidents into the Lesmos, and are we going to see more of that? Is it going to be even more chaos this time around? Is everyone going to be a bit more settled down and just fighting in their own way? Are we going to see some better moves? I don't know. That's wait and see. But we're here at Monza. Many overtaking opportunities, and we've got a long season ahead of us. But I'm sure we're going to have some fantastic racing action as we get away for the second time, as we will run through the grid in a few moments time as well, but we will just get the practice session done with, as yeah, at Monza it's one for the absolute fantastic overtaking opportunities. We've already seen many moves heading round Curva Grande and into the Delle Vosges chicane. You've got to be heavier on the brakes. Everyone's lining up once again for the grid, as we'll find out which order it is this time around, as it is Jimmy DeSantos who takes away from pole position, Alwin Bakker in P2 and Yuri Verswijnveren in P3. Adria Danov, I can't speak, in P4, Bas Visser in P5, Peter Stelter in P6, Rick Postema in P7, Vigario in P8, Stuyvelhagen in P9 and Hoffricher in P10 once again, Luke van Wijngaarden in P11, Bas van Straten in P12. And in P13 we have Owen van Kruysen. Then in P14 we have Niels Bakker. Then in behind Agus NM, we saw him have a few incidents in the first race in P15. Jamin Dante Powell in P16. Ariel Menes in P17, Lasse Sol in P18, Hofstadter in P19, and Simon Van Dijk. A lot of incidents in the first race for him. He's going to want it a lot cleaner in P20. Ira Kukovic in P21, as a safety car holds away for the second time this season. And we're going to have a different man who's starting us at the top. But who's going to get away better? We'll have to find out in a few moments' time. It is the McLaren versus the BMW side by side in both lanes, as the safety car leads away. Jimmy DeSantos on at the top this time round. The man from Spain. Can he do anything in this race to try and keep it? But we're going to have to keep an eye on Hoffricher, who's starting in P10 once again. Can he climb his way through the grid? We'll have to find out. This is a reverse pack of that top 10 order in that first race, I'm pretty sure of that. And DeSantos taking P10 in the first race now, starting in P1, as we're going to head round Parabolica for the second time at the start of this race, when the safety car peels in and these guys get their foot down. Who's going to be a leader when we head into the Rettifilo chicane? As here we go then. Crawling round the safety car, gonna peel into the pit lane. It's gonna be DeSantos versus Bakker side by side as the silence breaks and the battle will begin, as DeSantos will get his power down and will go side by side with Bakker as we head across the line, as look at him behind, already going side by side as we head, covering off already is DeSantos with the inside line as we head on the route down to the Rettifilo chicane. As we get on the brakes, he does pull well and truly ahead. Povedano also dropping positions as well, as it's going 3 wide into turn number 1 and with the outside line, and that's Bakker, and no, that's a huge crash. And that is Hoffricher pulling across the grass there and cutting into P3. But these cars absolutely everywhere in the Rettifilo chicane. There's about 3 in the gravel for a few moments time. There's a few in the grass and everyone just getting back on track. But that was your pole sitter, Jimmy DeSantos, well and truly sent to the back of the pack and sitting in P19. Disastrous start for him in the first chicane. Verswijnveren is now our race leader out of absolutely nowhere. 1.5 seconds clear. Rick Postema in P2, Alwin Bakker in P3, and Hoffricher in P6 after cutting the corner in the end. But good start from Verswijnveren, picking up the pieces, cleaner one from him. But absolute chaos at the first chicane on lap 1, and there is a BMW in the background with no bonnet on it. But absolute chaos. I know it's a Mercedes, sorry, I read that totally wrong, but that's Van Straten in P21. He was involved in all the early instances as well with few cars. That's someone's bonnet and heading to the inside. I'm not sure whose that was, but Alwin Bakker in P3 as well, as he massively involved in the first chicane drama, but still in P3 as Providano in the background fighting for P4 with Peter Stelter both side by side. It was a decent race. Oh, that's a big crash in the background, surely into the barriers. And I think that's a McLaren, as that's Coel in P19 out of this race. That was a huge collision with the barriers there. We've seen all sorts of chaos in this first lap. A lot of drivers falling down the order and out of the race. But Verswijneren 8 tenths clear on the first lap. Who would have thought he would be leading? Absolutely not me. But Rick Postema in P2, Alwyn Bakker in P3, and Hofrichter already up to P4 in this event. But we're going to see a replay as it was Coel in the Porsche, as we'll see how he did that one. As here we go, we're heading through the Ascari section. Has he just lost the rear? He absolutely has, flying into the what's a huge collision. The G's must have been pretty high there for Coel at the Ascari section, into the tyre wall and into the gravel and out of this second race. Nils Bakker going side by side once again into Lesmo 1. We've seen plenty of incidents around here. He's now going into the what? It's a replay of that one, as that's a huge collision there. And this is the car that was on the inside line. And yeah, the Mercedes flying through. That was a huge instance for him. And he's now sent to the back of the pack as well. But Verswijneren at the top of the times and 9 tenths clear to Postema in P2, and Alwyn Bakker also in P3 as well, as his teammate Alwyn Bakker out of this event with that incident at the exit of Lesmo 1 as we head onto the straight on the route down to the Ascari section. We've had all sorts of chaos in these first 2 laps, but Steifelhagen, he's on the chase down of Agus and Providano as they head down to the Ascari section into turn number 8. But this is seriously going to be a huge fight to the line. 3 minutes on the clock. We're on lap 2. We've seen 2 laps of pure chaos and pure drama. You'd think it would settle down after the first event, but it's just got even wilder. We've got 2 cars already out of the event, and that's Nils Bakker and Coel at the back. But we've seen many more incidents than that, especially at the first chicane, as we ride on board with Lucas Hofrichter, as he's the winner in the qualifying session, the practice session, and in race 1. And can he get to the top once again here in race 2 in the reverse grid from the first results in the top 10? As Hofrichter already pulling round the outside line and pulling well and truly ahead with a 55.961, sets an even faster time than in that first session, and goes into P number 3, and Hofrichter on the charge already to Postema and Verswijneren, and Postema already on the back of Verswijneren, so as his race lead time cut to a short. As look at the chase down from the BMW, but it's that McLaren we need to keep an eye on, the one who's been very quick all weekend long. But what a race from Hofrichter so far. Can he fly up the order there? But Verswijneren 4 tenths clear at the minute, and closing it is Postema in the BMW. Can he finally get that win on the board, or is it going to be the Hofrichter show once again on the exit of the De La Roja chicane, as he's throwing everything at this one to close in even more to Postema, who might just need to get past on Verswijneren to keep this man at bay. But here we go, very close, about 2.5 tenths for the second is Postema, closing up to Verswijneren as he gets power down on the straight once again on the route down to the Ascari section at turn number 8. As we've seen many moves down here, is there going to be another one from Postema? He's closing in, but I don't think it's going to be enough in the end as he heads onto the brakes. So it'll be waiting until the move, until he can maybe make a move at Parabolica or on the exit of that on the route down to the Retifilo chicane. But might want to check his mirrors as that McLaren will be looming larger as in behind, closing in to 7 tenths of a second. Just look at that pace, it's unbelievable for the McLaren. He's been so quick this week, and even further ahead than the rest. And so far he fought from P10 all the way to that race win in that first race of the NXTGP GT4 event. But in race 2, can he also make that move? There's Verswijneren going very wide on the exit, and Postema coming into the pit lane there. Interesting stuff for Postema, and he's going to be sent to the back of the pack, so that's him out of the equation. But Hofrichter now right on the back of Verswijneren, and now going to be on the back of the race leader and try and get himself into the race leading position for the second time today. And this will be an impressive drive once again, and can he be even more dominant today? But in the pits, interesting from Postema, he's sent packing to the back, as now coming out in P17, and can he fight anywhere from there? It'll be pretty tricky there, but Verswijneren at the top. Hofrichter 2 tenths behind and closing under that. And can he try and make a move into the De La Rocha chicane? He's closing in on the braking point. Verswijneren covering that inside line in the Porsche. But this McLaren here is looking so steady, so comfortable, and so brave on the brakes. And his grip around here is going to absolutely nailed on. This is the man to beat here at Monza. And I tell you what, in the slipstream, surely Verswijneren is going to know what's going to happen here. He's going to have to pull out everything he possibly can. We're now 7 minutes into this race, 13 on the clock, and lap 4 of racing action. We've got many drivers out of the equation after early incidents. That's Coel, Bakker and Menas. And at the top, we've got Verswijneren still leading this Grand Prix with Hofrichter just in behind, who started in P10 once again, and climbing all the way through once again is Hofrichter. And surely going to make his way through as we head on the route to Parabolica. Can he make a move this time around, or is he going to wait until the Rettifilo chicane? It's getting close, and he's going to pull out of that slipstream, and it's side by side between Verswijneren and Hofrichter, who's going to have to go the long way round at Parabolica. Still side by side, but on the exit, Verswijneren is going to have to get through, as Tudor's not really going to one there. It's going to be a tricky one around the outside, but on the exit, Hofrichter, has he got the better line and the better overspeed? I think he absolutely might. Look at how much he closed in on a straight line. Surely, when he gets in that slipstream, he's going to pull out ever so soon and see a clear track ahead of him for the second time today. As into the race lead he goes. Around the outside is going to be at the Rettifilo chicane. It's still side by side. Can Verswijneren trying to defend this one down the inside? I think he can, you know, but it's very late on the brakes and goes over the curb there. It was very late, and he's going to be surely a slow down penalty. He's got to give all that time back. But on the exit, Verswijneren surely going to have to give it away to Hofrichter, who's now been let into that race lead way too late on the brakes for Verswijneren, who also raced in the Mazda Cup on Monday. But yeah, huge mistake for Verswijneren, who now has to defend this P2 behind Hofrichter, unless he can try and go for a move, which he looked to the inside line, but it was too far away for Hofrichter. Any later on the brakes, he'd be over these curbs as well into the De La Rocha chicane. But big incident there, and Verswijneren well and truly out of the equation now for Hofrichter, who's now 1.7 seconds clear already. Few mistakes from Hofrichter, 2 mistakes from Verswijneren, sorry. Hofrichter faultless at the top once again. 1.6 is the gap, and surely can just take it away from him. Look at him skyrocketing it ahead. Like he's got a boost on the back of that car. But Verswijneren, Bakker, Stelter all in this fight for P2, as Verswijneren well under pressure, and Alwin Bakker going to be looking to make that move for P2 and the best position behind Hofrichter, that's for sure, as in this event he's been so dominant here at Monza than the rest of the field. But so far Hofrichter running such a nice race, 1.8 seconds clear. He's only just got into that race lead. Verswijneren going way too deep at the first chicane, and that might just come back to bite him. As look at the cars behind him. Bakker, he's also trying to look down the inside line, but so far can't make that move, and he will look to make that move on the route down to the Rettifilo chicane. And in that slipstream once again, Alwin Bakker in this position to make this move. When's he going to pull out from that slipstream? He's in behind it, Stelter as well. He's also want to try and get that podium position as well. Can he get past Verswijneren on this straight and make it 3 wide? It's closing up between the pack. Can the BMW pull out to the outside line and make this move on Verswijneren? He doesn't want to go late on the brakes this time around. Around the outside goes Verswijneren, down the inside he goes and defends it again, but the BMW in behind, so close on the exit. Might have made a bit of contact with the rear of the car, but nothing major. But Verswijneren this time successfully defending that position, but this time around Bakker, can he try and make a move heading into the De La Rocha chicane, heading around Curva Grande? Can he have the overspeed this time around to go down the inside? He's trying it all he can, pushing everything to the track limits. He's got the inside line at De La Rocha chicane, going side by side. Verswijneren got to push it to the outside, but absolute dominance round the outside line. Goes Bakker into turn number 5 and pulling well and truly ahead in behind. Stelter and Povidano also trying to fly through as well into the Lesmos, as Bakker has just been let to go, already a second between them. But Verswijneren also having to defend from Peter Stelter and Adria Povidano as he heads down the straight on the Serigilo straight, past under the bridge and into the Ascari section. It's Bakker who takes P2, 3.5 seconds down the road from Hofrichter, and Verswijveren still defending P3 and trying to keep any podium hopes alive, is in behind Stelter, and Polidano also still fighting as well, as we look at Polidano's car, as he's right on the back of Stelter, the gap about a tenth of a second. Is he going to try and move into Parabolica at turn number 11, as his car's going very wide behind, and I think that was Kreuzen in P15, but here we go. Polidano in P4, flying to the inside line of Stelter and flying through in the Porsche as they head onto the main straight once again, and right in behind Verswijveren. Good move there into Parabolica and into P4. Verswijveren now going to win the pressure from this man, who seemed to be setting the benchmark for P4 and trying to get on to that podium position. Backer being let to go, as down the inside goes Stelter once again. It's still side by side between these two, Stelter versus Polidano on the exit. Who's going to be ahead and in behind? That's Steifelhagen in P10. He's dropping positions at the first chicane, and he's well and truly out of the points now and having to spin it round in the cleaner air. But what a mistake that could have been from the Porsche. I wonder if he got tapped from behind there. But Steifelhagen, big error there. Polidano still going side by side with Stelter, as this is a huge, huge battle for P4. And he's pulling well and truly ahead this time around, is Polidano in the Porsche. And now going to surely set sail on the guy ahead, Verswijveren, who's making a few mistakes from the race lead, let Bakker through by a second, and now closing in about 9/10 of a second is this man Polidano, as you can see that Porsche in his sights. But Hofrichter, we don't even need to talk about him anymore. 4.1 seconds clear, absolute dominance asserted from himself. 13 minutes on the clock, 7 minutes to go, as Hofrichter is just setting dominance in this first event here at Monza. Bakker in P2 and Verswijveren in P3, and Polidano 6/10 behind, closing. He's actually dropped Stelter as well behind, who wants to follow him through really to make that move on Verswijveren as well. But as we head to Parabolica, the gap about 7/6 of a second, as in behind Visser, Vigario, Hofstadter, Kreuzen, all in this train as well for the final points positions, as Van Dijk is leading that one in P8. As we head in Parabolica, oh, that's the car behind, that's Lasse Sol in P10. Bas Visser just feeds it through on the inside line and flies through. So going too deep there was Lasse Sol, and on the exit, on the route down to lap number 8, Lasse Sol drops that position, goes way too deep into Parabolica and lets that man through. But Bas Visser through, Lasse Sol demoted, and P10 for him, as he's going to set routes on Weingarten in P9. Let's see if he can make that move later on. He's actually gone way too deep into the first chicane on the exit. Might be left vulnerable to Lasse Sol, as it's very close between them, but in behind Vigario, he's also trying to make a move. He's going to go around the outside at Curva Grande. You don't see many pull off there. He'll be in the braking zone at the Delaroja chicane. But it's going to be close between these two as we ride on board with Vigario in P12. Can he make the move to the inside line on Lasse Sol at number 11 BMW versus this man in the... Oh, as that's contact on the race, and that's into the wall. Goes Vigario, and that's him setting sail out of the points, and that's a big error from the McLaren, who's now dropping to P14 and drops the rears and make contact with the back of Lasse Sol's car. Huge incident for Vigario, and that's his chances well and truly out of the equation. Stelter, Kukovic, Agus also fighting for the final podium place as well, and P4 mainly, but Verswijveren also been closing on as well. But these guys, Agus, Simon Van Dijk and Kukovic, all squabbling for positions in behind Van Dijk and Weingarten. They're going side by side for P8, as Van Dijk and Weingarten looking to settle this one with 5 minutes to go as we head into Parabolica. It's close between these two, as into the Ascari section, there was going side by side and demoting the headers. Here we go. Here was the replay of this move from Weingarten going side by side into the Ascari section. On the outside, he tried it, going way too far off, and that just allows him through. So it's going to be an interesting battle, but Van Dijk leading it so far. But we look back ahead, and Verswijveren back under pressure. Bakker also still only there. He's dropped a few tenths on this latest lap, but going down the inside, Povedano, can he try and make a move? He's threatened to move, as in behind that, that's Stelter and Kukovic going side by side for P5 into the first chicane. He's going side by side between them, and on the exit, I think it's going to be Stelter who comes out on top here, but we focus back on the front three, and it's Verswijver and Povedano also trying to make moves, but Bakker well and truly under pressure again. The gap was about a second. It's now been dropped in the last few laps, as we have 4 minutes to go, as Hofrich are 5.4 seconds clear, but Verswijver wanting to keep this podium and trying to fight Bakker again. Bakker got through earlier, but now maybe making a few more mistakes and letting Verswijver have his hopes up again. Down to the inside goes Povedano as he spun Verswijver around at Lesmo 1, and that's Verswijver's hopes of a podium well and truly gone. Can he get back on the track safely in the top 10? I don't think he can, so pulls out and into the wall as well. That's gonna be not ideal, and back onto the wall, and that's Kreuzen as well. He's made contact with coming back on the track, and Verswijver is well and truly. I'm going to see a replay of this. It was down the inside and he just couldn't make it stick there. He spun well off the track at Lesmo 1, and then he comes back on the track in quite a dangerous manner into the wall. He tries to rush it back on the track, but into the wall. That switches his car into, uncontrollable levels, and now sent well and truly in the gravel and onto the grass. Well, that's Verswijver's race absolutely over, flicking all sorts onto the racing line as well, but the car is absolutely destroyed. It's into the wall. Disaster for Verswijver. As you've seen the replays, his race absolutely ending back in the pit lane for him. Hofrichter, look at the dominance, 6.1 clears in a league of his own. NXTGP round 1 in the GT4 Cup is definitely just dominance from Lucas Hofrichter. What a race. He's actually a second clear of Bakker on that latest lap as well, so he's pulling out about a second a lap, but lap 10, what a lap for him, and 6.2 clear. As we look behind, it's Agus NM also fighting with Kukovic for P4, and heavy on the brakes once again, as Kukovic still keeping that position, but on the exit going slightly wide as well. So on the exit, it's going to be Agus who gets the better overhead speed on the route around Curva Grande, and now can he try and make a move into the Della Roger chicane using that slipstream, and can he pull to that inside line early enough to try and pull side by side as we head into turn number 4 and turn number 5. Definitely love going for moves into here, but I think he's going to have to just keep behind as covering that inside line very well. Was Kukovic ahead, but has compromised his exit speed, and coming to join the action is Simon van Dijk in that McLaren as we're heading into Lesmo 1 after we've just seen that incident with Verswijver, who's dropped all the way to the back of the pack and out of this race. Disaster for him, who's fighting for the podium, but Hofrichter 6.6 clear, Bakker in P2, Povedano in P3, our top 3 today, but we're looking back down for the fight for P number 4. It's Kukovic, Agus and Peter Stelter, and Van Dijk getting involved in this one as well. Let's see who could take it with with just 1 minute left on the clock, so this will be one of the final laps of the race, the penultimate lap of the race, as Agus NM pulling it around the Ascari section and trying to have any sort of different lines to try and make a move on Kukovic and defend from Pete Stelter. Might be forced into a move into Parabolica here, as look at how close Pete Stelter is getting. The gap closing ever so shortly, as let's see, in that slipstream going to the inside line. Threatening that inside line is the McLaren of Peter Stelter, but this time round cannot make it stick. But on the exit, can he dive to the inside line? 30 seconds left on the clock. We are about to head on to the final lap of racing action, as Hofrichter is surely going to take this one as well. Weingarten and Hofstadter in behind, going side by side. Let's see who comes out. Oh, it's Bas Visser and Weingarten, sorry, as we head down to the first chicane once again, into the Westfield chicane. Look at this angle from the helicopter cam, as who's going to come out on top at the moment. Just edging in front is Bas Visser with the inside line, but Weingarten outbrakes him and now going for the outside line with the inside line. At turn number 2, and that's a car going backwards. That's Agus NM. He must have had contact earlier on with the likes of Simon van Dijk, Pete Stelter and Kukovic, and that's him well and truly out of the points, but not ideal for Agus NM, who is fighting further up the pack. As you're going to see a replay of the action as we head into turn number 1 and 2, as he's going to go for the inside line, as he's actually just sitting behind and takes too much curb, and I think he might have just hit the back of the car as well, so that sends his car into an uncontrollable spin. But this man, look at how far ahead he is from the rest of the pack. The gap 7.2 seconds. Stelter makes it up to P4 in the end, ahead of Kukovic, but dominance asserted here at Monza. NXTGP Sprint Cup He's not just got top in practice, not just in qualifying, not just winning race 1. He's going to come through the Ascari section for the final time in this event. And what a victory this will be for Lucas Hofrichter, who's going to head on the route down to Parabolica. And in round 1, in event 1, the king of Monza has been crowned. Lucas Hofrichter for the second time out of 2 out of 2 for Lucas Hofrichter, pulling round the final corner for one last time. He's gonna take the win. Top in practice, top in race 1 and top in race 2. It's a grand slam for Lucas Hofrichter, who takes the full event on the top step. What a victory and what a race in behind. That's Van Dijk in the wall, and that's him out of the race at the final corner. Absolute disaster. See the replay. He just stacks it on the rear and into the barrier. Van Dijk, disaster on the final lap. And now out of the race, cross line in P15. Bakker takes P2. Povedano takes P3. Stelter takes P4. And Kukovic cross line in P5 as everyone else just finishing across the line. But what a race from Hofrichter. What an event for Hofrichter. Monza, the king, has been crowned. What an event. As we see Menas, he's going to be the final man to cross the line in P18. Stratton crossed the line in P17. But wow, dominance asserted from Hofrichter and full points scored from him at the top of the leaderboard. But well, absolutely ideal. Bakker, good race from him as well in this second event as well from Bakker, who takes P2, and Povedano did get into P3 in the end, and Stelter in P4 and Kukovic in P5. Massive battle between Stelter and Kukovic earlier on, but then obviously settled down with that incident with Van Dijk at the final corner as we're heading into Delaware chicane for the final time this race. But Menas, the final car to classify in this Grand Prix, is coming around the final corner and putting his foot down to the line for the final time here at Monza as Menas finishes in P18 and across the line he goes. So Hofrichter takes that win in the end. What an event victory. Let's see some of these replays. This was lap 1. We haven't actually got to see a replay of this due to all the chaos on the following lap as well. But it went round. It was Jimmy DeSantos who did go round at the second corner. Just went way too deep into turn 1. That causes everyone into absolute chaos in behind. That's everywhere. Absolute carnage on lap 1. But Jimmy DeSantos just went into a spin, went too far deep into the first chicane, and it was an incident of his own. But what a race from Hofrichter to bring it home in the end. But huge mistake on lap 1, which cost Jimmy DeSantos any chance of a podium today. But there we go. Lucas Hofrichter takes another win here at Monza. 2 out of 2 for him. What an event and what a Grand Slam win. Bakker takes P2 on the podium. Povedano takes P3 in the end after an incident earlier doors. But Povedano, good job from him to get on the podium in the end. Stelter takes P4, Kukovic in P5, Visser in P6, Weingarten takes P7, Hofstadter in P8, Lasse Sol takes P9, Agus takes P10, Pedro Vigario takes P11, Rick Postema in P12, Kreuzen in P13, Lucas Steifelhagen in P14, Simon Van Dijk in P15, Jimmy DeSantos in P16, Bas van Straten in P17, Ariel Menas in P18, and the final one is in behind was Jurvers Wyvern. Huge incident with him in the final elements of that race, which landed him on the podium, takes P19. Coel takes P20 and Bakker at the back in 21. What an event here at Monza. Drama filled, that's for sure. But only one man, Hofrichter, who takes both wins. What an event, what a victory. And I'm sure we'll see you in Sebring for round 2. After, surely, maybe, more Hofrichter dominance. But we'll have to see then. But it's been a pleasure. And we'll see you all then. Thank you very much for joining us here at Monza.